Welcome to the new Workology Go Podcast. In just under 5 minutes, we'll get you the HR and workplace news you need before you start your day 2 times a week. Get ready, get set, and go with the new Workology Go Podcast.
Here are today's HR and workplace news headlines from the Workology Go Podcast. I'm Jessica Miller-Merrill. This podcast is sponsored by HSA Bank. Google is reported to employ more than 120,000 contractors. This number comes to us from an article from Fast Company, which says that contractors account for 54% of Google's overall workforce. 54%. The use of temporary and contract workers is growing. A reported 10.6 million workers were independent contractors in 2017, accounting for nearly 7% of the American workforce, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. Earlier this year, the National Labor Relations Board, or NLRB, overturned an Obama-era standard for deciding whether workers are employees who are protected by federal labor law or independent contractors who are not, giving a boost to companies that prefer to use contract labor. What's really interesting about the Fast Company article isn't just that Google is reported to have a larger than average percentage of contract workers, it's that Google recently announced that the company will require vendors and companies who supply contract workers to provide those workers with specific perks and benefits, including comprehensive health care, a $15 per hour minimum wage, 12 weeks of parental leave, and 8 days of annual sick leave. Some might believe that these new requirements might be a form of co-employment. Joe Balenci of Knowledge Services shared with us on a previous Workology podcast interview some of the challenges in hiring, engaging, and working with contract workers. Let's listen.
A large part of that is establishing a clear employment relationship. Is that well established and outlined, not just in an employment agreement, but on the front end when they're going through application processes and things like that. Another key is avoiding 1099 designations except where explicitly appropriate. So we follow strictly the IRS's 1099 guidelines and review each state's attorney general's guidelines relative to 1099 designations in their state, because each state applies those a little bit differently, to make sure that we don't put our customers in a position of being on the front page of the local newspaper for enforcing 1099 rules and regulations against private companies that they then don't apply to themselves. And then, really separating the management of the work product. And many times in on-demand situations, the customer is managing the work product that the resources are doing. But we want to separate that from managing the worker. So our customers are going to manage what resources are doing, but they shouldn't be managing the worker. We're going to alleviate that from them, alleviate the burden of it, and also, of course, the risk.
You can read more about Google's contractor benefit requirements, which are expected to go into effect in early 2020, and the recent contractor changes by the NLRB by visiting the transcript of this podcast on Workology.com. I'm interested to hear from you if you think that this is crossing the line, or is it something that you might be considering requiring like Google?
With health savings accounts, flexible spending accounts, health reimbursement arrangements, COBRA, and commuter benefits, HSA Bank is simplifying the health account experience for over 35,000 employers and 2.7 million members alike, inspiring everyone to own their health. Learn more at hsabank.com.
And that's this episode of the Workology Go podcast, sponsored by HSA Bank. We're your go-to for HR and workplace news. I'm Jessica Miller-Merrill. Thank you for listening.
To learn more about the Workology Go podcast, subscribe to us on Apple, Google, and Stitcher. Our podcast is also available on Alexa and Google Home. Learn more at workology.com/Go podcast and access this episode's resources, links, and reports for more information.